HBCUs are not chocolate-covered PWIs. And we do a disservice to those people who are teaching at HBCUs who focus on Europe always being the foundation of academic areas and not focus on Africa. The schools were founded on the principles with regard to correcting that misnomer with regard to education and knowledge. That they were created to now uplift people of color, if it's at an MSI or an HBCU, to now let them understand their foundations in all those academic areas. You cannot go to Europe and look at Europe solely saying they are the first one to format governments. We're not the first kings, the monarchs and queens on the planet Earth out of Africa. We're not the first socialization of human beings occurring on the African continent. Do we not have the first rules to deal with human beings functioning together on the African continent? When we talk about language, the first people to speak on the planet Earth are on the African continent. The first ones to write are on the African continent, to have some forms of writing to communicate with one another. Were we not the first ones to praise God? Were we not the first ones to create the rituals to praise God and to acknowledge that there is a higher power? So you can't go and talk about philosophy and just solely look at Europe. You must go to Africa also. That's a part of our foundation. You can't go and look at Asia and look at Europe with regards to mathematics. Are not the oldest calculating devices in the world out of Southern Africa? Engineering, we must go to Africa and look at engineering also. You cannot teach at an HBCU and create our scholars with the mindset that it all had to go back to Europe. You can't look at someone like Jacob Lawrence, Romare Bearden, and say that they are folk artists, when they are classical artists within the American art scene. They are classical artists. Charles Dawson. You can't go and talk about language when we're the ones that have multiple languages on the continent of Africa. We can't talk about biology and medicine and not look at the African continent with doctors right there in Africa, men and women. You do a disservice to our scholars when you go and convey that information that we are basically beholden to other people, to Europeans. Incorrect. You must go to Africa also to show the foundations that also come out of Africa. Communalism, is that not a part of what we can call democracy? Do we not have our own ideals and our own forms on the African continent? We talk about criminal justice. Do we not have a system with regard to dealing with people when it comes to punishment and retribution and rehabilitation? Do we not do that on the continent? So if you're teaching at HBCU, you cannot do that. You cannot have us go to Europe solely and not go to Africa. So those you teaching at HBCUs, we're not a chocolate-covered PWI. Go to Africa. And if you don't know about it, then this means it's your time to do your continuing education and go learn about it. So our scholars have the proper foundation, which were the missions of these schools right here. So then that way they had a proper foundation so they could truly be a part of the talent group that would now bring about ultimate liberation, not just for our people, for this nation. Yes, HBCUs, those are the keys components for us to be great for this nation right here. Our scholars are the ones who make change. So again, we're not chocolate-covered PWIs. Gain the knowledge. Go back in time.